So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present to you your speaker for this morning, Miss Tiffany Hope Lim Top. Good morning, ma'am.
Morning. Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm so thankful to be spending this morning with everyone. I'd like to thank my personal friend, your president, Dr. Vivian Kosai. Thank you to all the vice presidents, deans, faculty, and dear students who are spending this morning with us. Okay, so, as Sir Michael shared earlier, there are a lot of changes now that are brought about by this pandemic, and part of that would be volatility, uncertainty in these times. So mental health is very important. There is no health without mental health. We all need to balance our lives, no? The different areas of our lives. So I would like to invite you to listen with openness of mind and heart, as I share with you about self-care and mindfulness as a way to cope and to enhance and restore our mental health in these difficult times. So please allow me to share my screen with you. You're able to see the screen? Okay naman pa.
Yes,
All
ma'am.
right. Okay, here we go. Okay. Wait, sorry. Okay, so before we begin, that I just want to share that some disclaimers na when it comes to mental health and when it comes with regards to the things I will be sharing with you this morning. No? So ang pangangalaga sa ating sarili ay iba't ibang klase. There's so many ways no, that we take care of ourselves. Maraming iba't ibang paraan upang pangalagaan ang ating sarili. Hindi siya one size fits all. No? Diba sa mga t-shirt, meron yung tinatawag natin free size. Hindi siya ganyan. No? So iba-ibang tao, iba-ibang paraan na paggawa ng pangangalaga sa sarili o tinatawag nating self-care. And then, kailangan natin pangalagaan ng ating sarili araw-araw. No? We have to do this every day hanggat maging kasanayan na natin to. So we need to do this every day until it becomes our regular practice. No? Ganun din ang mindfulness. Kailangan din araw-araw natin pagsasanayin to. No? Hindi siya on and off switch. Parang we cannot expect that we practice some form of self-care for one day and expect it to last for the rest of the month. Kailangan araw-araw, kailangan may consistency. So, lahat tayo ay dumaraan sa pagbabago, adjustments, at natutong makibakas sa pagsusubok dala ng pandemyang ito. Now, we all are going through tough times right now. Now, a lot of changes, adjustments. And so, let's all try to practice kindness, patience, and understanding with each other. Okay, so right now, I'd like to invite you to do an emotional checkup. No? Kumusta ka na? No? How are you feeling right now? And what is self-care for you at this point in time? And what is mindfulness for you? Okay, so as we can see, no, there are majority of us are happy. So I'm happy to know that. And there are some of us who are feeling sad. Some of us are feeling scared, which is understandable because of this pandemic going on. Some of us are loving it. Some of us are excited. So it's good to know that the group majority are happy right now. So I'm thankful for that. And thank you for participating in our poll. So this COVID-19 pandemic now, everyone is dealing with this unsettled, uncertain moment in our global history in different ways and at different paces. Emotions are very much in flux right now, given that people are experiencing both personal loss and a shared profound collective loss in communities and societies. We've lost a lot in this pandemic. We've lost not just people that we've known and loved, family, community members, people from our own countries, routines, and jobs, but our natural world has been turned upside down. No? We've lost that sense of what our world is about and what we are about. So this is from Sister Marianne Laurie. She's a grief counselor, and she's been counseling people who are grieving the loss of loved ones and family members during this pandemic. So we are coping with a lot of COVID-19 related stress. I'm sure sa buhay estudyante ninyo, maraming stress, di ba? Dala ng shift, no? From face-to-face classes to online classes. And as a student, we have our responsibilities. Now we study, review lessons, quizzes, exams, projects, and research papers. But we have to realize that we are a person with a life. Now we have pets, hobbies, part-time jobs, sports, non-academic responsibilities, organizations, and etc. So why is self-care important? We need to avoid burnout. We want to be more productive. We want to have a rewarding and successful work experience. We want to be happier and less stressed. Who wouldn't want these things, right? So, self-care, mahirap siya gawin no, sa kabisihan ng ating buhay estudyante. But as human beings, we must prioritize our own well-being and others' well-being as well. So I'd like to present to you that self-care is something that is radical and revolutionary. So to put the world right in order, we must put the nation in order. To put the nation in order, we must first put the family in order. To put the family in order, we must first cultivate our personal life. We must first set our hearts right. So can you imagine the revolutionary way that the world will be improved if we all took good care of ourselves? No? So it sets that ripple effect now. When we start to cultivate our personal life, our family, our nation, and the whole world will be in order. So self-care starts with you and small acts every single day. And self-care is not self-indulgent. So I'd like to correct this idea. No? Parang, I think marami sa atin nape-pressure tayo sa social media. Ang idea natin ng self-care is kailangan mamahalin, kailangan pumunta tayo sa spa, magpamasahe, magpa-facial, or kailangan mag-indulge tayo sa mamahaling foods or drinks, ganyan. Or minsan ang idea natin of self-care is kain tayo ng 1 gallon ng ice cream in one sitting. O magpuyat tayo, mag-marathon tayo ng mga Korean novela sa buong gabi na hindi tayo natutulog. That is not self-care, no? That is self-indulgence. So what is self-care? Self-care is deliberately taking care of your well-being through restorative activities. So self-care has to restore you. It has to replenish your energy. You wouldn't let this happen to your phone, right? Di ba? Iniiwasan natin na malubat yung cellphone natin. Don't let it happen to you either. Self-care is a priority. It's not a luxury. So you have to take care of yourself first, or you will have nothing left to give others. Self-care is not selfishness. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Parenting author Hal Edward Runkle argues that the highest form of love is, I love me for your benefit. In other words, in order to give our best to the people we love, we need to love ourselves first. Anyway, the previous slide was just saying that we experience compassion fatigue, no? wherein we feel, I'm sorry, the slides keep moving forward. Okay. The recipe for compassion fatigue says that we tend to meet other people's needs, but we forget our own needs. No? So kailangan natin iwasan yun. And then self-care are the practices or rituals that we use to reduce stress, to cope with the challenges of work, to enhance our subjective sense of well-being, and to replenish our energy levels. So why is self-care important? We want healthier lifestyles. We want to have better physical health. We want to have improved coping with stress and sadness. We want to achieve our goals and potentials, to have improved mental health and well-being, to have higher educational attainment, greater productivity, greater employment and earnings, better relationships, positive connections, and an improved quality of life. So if you can look at this chart, it just shows us that for those of us who are in academic work as students, as faculty members, as administrative duties, in administrative roles in our schools now, when we continue to be self-sacrificing and we practice poor self-care, this leads to fatigue, burnout, and dissatisfaction. But when we do good self-care, it leads to satisfaction, resilience. So one common trap that we face in practicing self-care is burnout. No? Minsan, burnt out na tayo, pudpud na tayo. No? So paano natin nare-recognize to when we are feeling burnt out? When we are physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted. When we believe that our work doesn't have meaning. When we have low energy, and when we have persistent negative or cynical attitude. And what causes burnout? When we have frail or weak personal boundaries. No? So when it's hard for us to say no, even though people are demanding things of us that we cannot deliver anymore. So we need to have strong boundaries, no? Strong personal boundaries. Otherwise, when we have weak boundaries, that leads to burnout. A lot of us are facing financial issues due to this pandemic. When we have chronic personal struggles, when we are encountering changes, no, due to this pandemic, no? And when we have excessive workload, when we have a perfectionist personality, and when we practice poor self-care, this leads to burnout. No? So you can see in this picture, no, parang stress na yung estudyante. And then compassion fatigue. How do we recognize the symptoms? So in the world of work, when we have work dread or avoidance, when we are constantly absent from work or classes, when we lack enjoying our studies and our work, when we have lower empathy, when we disengage, and when we withdraw our responses to other people's, we withdraw from them. And then in terms of emotions, when we are irritable, when we are anxious, oversensitive, we are restless, di tayo mapakali. Some of us might turn to substance use, drink more alcohol or smoke cigarettes. And then when we feel a lot of resentment, no, yung ang sama-sama ng loob natin sa maraming tao. And when we have poor judgment and concentration, yung sinasabi ni Sir Michael earlier na hirap mag-focus, ito yun eh. And then in terms of our physical symptoms, our bodies, when we have headaches, gastro issues, muscle tension, insomnia, fatigue, cardiac issues, and blood pressure issues, these are symptoms of compassion fatigue. So right now, I'd like you to reflect what has been your chief stressor so far. The different stressors: COVID-19 pandemic fatigue, heavy academic or study load, toxic study or work environment, financial worries, family problems, relationship issues. There are probably a lot of other major stressors out there, but these are the most common ones. As you can see, no, majority of us, I think medyo magkalapit, no, majority are facing financial worries, but the next in line would be COVID-19 pandemic fatigue, and then heavy academic study load, toxic study environment, family problems, relationship issues. So as one of you asked, no, paano kung sabay-sabay lahat? We really need to try to cope, no? Ang daming stress natin sa buhay. Pero kailangan nga, as Sir Michael said earlier, ang Pinoy, naturally resilient tayo. So we need to tap into our resilience. Okay. So again, these are the stressors, and thank you for answering the poll. Thank you for sharing your stressors. Just to share, when I had this same webinar for the doctors, a lot of them answered that they are having stress over the pandemic fatigue, no? Kasi pagod na sila being our medical frontliners. So in terms of study and life balance, no, I know a lot of you are struggling now with the shift to online learning. And we need to try to have that study and life balance, or for the faculty here, work and life balance. But unfortunately, the effects of smart technology, our gadgets, our laptops, our cell phones, they extend our academic day. And then the boundaries are blurred already between academics and home, or work and home. Kasi we're all a majority of us, I think, are still working from home or studying from home. And our academics bleeds into our personal life. So this has serious impacts on our health and well-being. That's why self-care is more important now than ever before. And then we have challenges to self-care. So I will go through these different challenges to self-care. And I'd like to invite you, as I share with you these challenges, try to reflect which one applies to you. Which challenge to self-care do you face when you are trying to apply self-care in your life? So the carer mindset will say, it's more important to help others, I'll be okay. No? So ito yung mga taong inuuna nila yung needs ng ibang tao bago yung needs nila. And then the superhero mindset would say, I should be able to cope. No? So ito yung mga feeling Batman, Superman, Darna, Wonder Woman. No? Feeling nila superhero sila, na hindi nila kailangan ng self-care. And then time and competing priorities would say, I'm too busy to do self-care, or I need to do this and that first before I do self-care. And then perceived value would say, I don't believe I deserve it, or I'm worth it, or self-care has no benefit, it's a waste of my time. And then not part of routine, people would say, I'm really motivated, but it's hard to change habits and start doing things I've never done before. And then workplace culture or lack of role models and support would say, no one I know is practicing self-care. There's a lack of support or encouragement from others in any attempt to make changes. So let's pause for a bit here. I shared with you all these challenges to self-care. Try to reflect, alin dito, among these challenges, which one applies to you whenever you try to practice some form of self-care in your life? Okay. So I'm going to present to you now a multidimensional self-care model. So when we're talking about self-care, we look at these 6 different dimensions. We have to look at our emotions and our mind. Our sorry, let me go back to that slide. Our emotions, our mind, our work, our relationships, our body, and our spirit. So self-care of the body, this is very basic. No? I think all of us know this, but knowing and practicing are 2 different things, right? So we need to have a healthy diet. We need to get regular exercise, have good sleep, bawal lang pagpupuyat, get regular health checkups, and drink enough water. So just to share that in my own self-care journey, I do weekly walks with my husband whenever he goes to play golf. Sinasabayan ko siya, nag-walking ako. And then due to this pandemic, I'm not able to attend Zumba classes, but our alumni association, where your president and I attended high school, they organized a weekly Zumba, no? ZOOM, Zumba ang tawag nila. And so every Saturday, we have 1 hour of Zumba class. So that's my way of trying to practice self-care of the body. Now, this is very important na. Self-care of our emotions. Marami sa atin, we struggle with this, especially now in this difficult time of pandemic. So our emotions, we need to express them. We need to express how we're feeling. We need to have debriefing incidents, meaning whenever we experience stressful incidents in our lives, we need to talk it out with someone. And then we need to have an activity that brings joy or energizes us. We need to name and own our feelings. No? Kailangan natin alamin ano yung feelings natin. Kailangan natin akuhin yung feelings natin. And we need to feel heard and understood. So how do we build emotional resilience? Now, there are 4 steps. Now, we need to pause, identify, acknowledge, and take action. So we need to practice a pause in everyday life. I'd like to invite you to consider taking kahit na 5 minutes lang, no, na manahimik, no? Take a pause, take a break, stay silent, and you keep performing this with intention until it becomes your practice. No? So just as this, when we started this session, I asked you, kumusta na kayo? I did an emotional checkup with you, or an emotional check-in, for you guys to be aware of what you're feeling at this point in time. This pausing in everyday life is our way of checking in with ourselves and how we're feeling right now. And then we need to identify and label our feelings. Would you know how many feelings there are in in this world? Would you like to guess? Okay, so actually there are 34,000 feelings, no? Our human body can contain 34,000 feelings. Can you imagine that? Ang dami-daming feelings, no? So how do we navigate through 34,000 feelings? And this is a tool that can be helpful in identifying our feelings. So this is what we call the feeling wheel. So this wheel can be useful in identifying the specific feelings and emotions you're experiencing at any time so that they can be addressed and resolved. So for example, if you experience a generally sad feeling, you can use the outer parts of the wheel to identify the specific type of sadness that you are feeling. So sadness here would be that blue portion of the wheel. No? So maybe what you are really experiencing right now is feeling isolated, no? Because of this pandemic. No? And the opposite can also happen. By using the wheel, you might realize that the cause of feeling inadequate can come from rejection or fear on a deeper level. So that's the light orange part of the wheel. No? So ganun, you can work from specific to general feeling, or from general to specific feeling. So that's how we use this feeling wheel. So you can use this wheel to reflect on what you're feeling in the moment right now. Di ba yung sinasabi natin ATM, at the moment. Ganyan. So what are you feeling at the moment? And then daily reflection at the end of the day. No? So at the end of your day, you try to check in with yourself, ano bang naramdaman ko, ano yung general feeling ng araw na to. And then long-term reflection, no? You can reflect over the last few months, years, and your general deeper feelings. So we also need to acknowledge, accept, and to own our feelings. No? Allowing your feelings and accepting them without judgment is an act of self-love. So this is by Anita Morjani. No? And when we reject what we feel, it's like rejecting ourselves also. No? So when we reject what we feel, it is also rejecting ourselves. Our emotions are data points. No? So our emotions help us to analyze what we are going through right now. And the more you push or deny your feelings, the stronger they get. I'm sure marami sa atin nakaranas na nito, no? Kaibigan ba or kapamilya ba, your parent, your brother or sister, sasabihin nila, tatanungin ka nila, galit ka sa akin, no? Sasabihin mo sa kanila, hindi ako galit. Pero deep down, galit na galit ka. So the more you deny these feelings of anger, of sadness, the stronger they get, no? Processing these feelings helps to diminish strong negative emotions. And then last step is to take action. So this is an awareness wheel. So we first begin with the things that we sense. So what do you notice with our five senses, with our eyes, our nose, our ears, our sense of touch? What do we notice around us? And then we take a look at our feelings. What is your gut telling you? And then it leads into thoughts. What are your thoughts? And then it leads into wanting. What is your first impulse? And finally, action. What might your next step be? So knowing what we've noticed around us, our feelings, our thoughts, and our impulses, we take those in, we process those, and then we think, what is our next step? What action do you want to take now that we know our feelings and our thoughts and our impulses? So aside from self-care of our feelings, that's emotional self-care and building emotional resilience, we also need to take care of our mind. We need to build mental resilience as well. So part of that is stress management, mastering new skills, and engaging in helpful self-talk, or part of positive psychology, wherein we try to change our negative or harmful thinking patterns, and we try to learn new positive behaviors so that we can avoid burnout. And cognitive behavioral therapy would tell us that our feelings leads to our thoughts, leads to our behaviors. So it's important for us to avoid falling into thinking traps, to protect our mind, to protect our mental health. We need to avoid thinking traps, and these thinking traps are rigid patterns of thinking that undercut our effectiveness. Okay. So what are some thinking traps to avoid? The first one is what we call mind reading. So mind reading is assuming you know what another person is thinking, or expecting that other person to know what you are thinking. Often, when you're assuming what the other person is thinking, is that you're assuming they're thinking something bad of you or negative of you. Rarely when we mind read are we assuming that someone else is thinking great things about us. So mind reading blocks communication. So here's an example of later I will share with you an example of mind reading. So akala natin, alam na natin iniisip ng ibang tao. Hindi na natin tinatanong kung yan nga ba ang totoo na iniisip ng ibang tao tungkol sa atin o sa sitwasyon natin. So akala natin 100% natin alam ang mga iniisip ng ibang tao. Mind reading has really negative effects on relationships. So that is one trap to avoid, the mind reading trap. Now, this next trap is what we call a me trap. So Dr. Martin Seligman's explanatory style research says sometimes you believe that you are the sole cause of every setback and problem, and that's a me trap. Because you're the sole cause of every setback and problem, you're probably also believing that you're causing a lot of harm to others. So here's one example of a me trap kind of thinking. Siyempre, galit siya sa akin. Wala ako masyadong nagawa para makatulong. Totoo naman masungit ako, mahirap pakisamahan. Nagigilty ako at disappointed ako sa sarili ko. Parang may nararamdaman akong sakit sa sikmura ko, pagod na ako. Gusto ko lang maging mag-isa, ayoko na humarap sa tao. So that's one example. Here's another one. Ako naman talagang may kasalanan kaya nagkaganito. Ang tanga-tanga ko talaga. Mas magaling sila sa akin, mas matalino sila sa akin, pampagulo lang ako dito. So these are some examples now of me trap thoughts. So in the me trap, we are over experiencing a lot of guilt and sadness. So this is a very old song. I'm not sure if you remember it pa, pero yung ako ang nakikita, ako ang nasisisi, ako ang laging may kasalanan, yung estudyante blues. Parang ganun, Yan yung me trap. Parang feeling natin parati tayo na lang, Lahat ng problema, lahat ng pagkukulang, lahat ng bagay sa mundo, ako ang may kasalanan. So I want you to think about how often and in what circumstances do you fall into this trap of me trap, no? This thinking trap of me, of blaming ourselves all the time. Okay, so in this next trap, this is what we call a them trap. No? In the them trap, you believe that other people or circumstance is the sole cause of your setbacks and problems. So in the me trap, it's all your fault. In the them trap, every problem, every setback is caused by other people or circumstances. So here's one example. Ang laki ng ulo niya, hindi naman niya kaya gawin yan. Nagmamagaling, bagal naman siya magtrabaho, kakabwisit na classmate. Sobra akong galit. Mabilis yung takbo ng puso ko. Sumugod ako, nakakahiyaman aminin, pinag-initan at pinatulan ko siya. So in the them trap, we believe that what we're dealing with are caused 100% by other people. So other people are trespassing us, they're betraying us, violating our rights, etc. There is a lot of anger and aggression. So in the them trap, blaming other people, the world, circumstances, weather, politics, etc., for the problems that you're confronting, it leads to a lot of anger and aggression. So if you fall into this trap a lot, you probably over-experience the emotion of anger, and this is not healthy or good for coping. So in this next trap, this is what we call catastrophizing. No? So this is the thinking trap in which you're wasting critical energy ruminating or overthinking. You're going around and around and around on the irrational worst case outcomes of a situation. So something happens, something triggers an activating event, something triggers you. Now your mind is kind of like a runaway train of worse and worse and worse things that are going to happen. And all of that energy and rumination is blocking you from actually taking any action. So there's an imbalance between your assessment of the threat and the actual reality. So the threat becomes huge. You see threats as looming and much bigger than they probably actually are. So you overestimate the threat and you're simultaneously underestimating your own resources to cope with the threat. So you end up catastrophizing. So here's an example of catastrophizing thinking. Sip-sip yan sa teacher, isusumbong niya ako, tapos pag-iinitan ako ng teacher, tapos magiging mababa ang grades na ibibigay sa akin, tapos makikick out na ako sa eskwela. Kinakabahan ako, ang bilis ng takbo ng puso ko. Sobra akong di mapakali. Isip ako ng isip, di tuloy ako makafocus sa class ko kanina. So people who catastrophize usually feel really anxious and not able to focus. You have all of these catastrophic worst case thoughts, which is generating your anxiety. And those thoughts are kind of crowding out your ability to focus on what's happening in front of you. This is not productive. So what are some anxiety reactions? Agitation, headache, stomach aches, sweaty palms, shortness of breath. That relationship between our thoughts and how they affect our bodies comes up a lot for anxious people. Hindi nakakatulong sa pagpatibay sa ating resilience. Pinapalaki ang problema kahit maliit lang siya talaga. Dahil dito, iniiwasan natin ang problema at hindi natin hinaharap ang stressors o problema sa buhay. So this thinking trap is called helplessness. Now, the helplessness trap is when you believe that the negative event, whatever it is going to impact all areas of your life and that you have no control. It's a belief that bad things are here to stay. There's nothing you can do about it, and they're going to ruin every domain, every aspect of your life. Because as it sounds, when you're thinking about bad things are here to stay, you have no control, it starts to generate a feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. So here's an example. Hindi talaga kami magkasundo. Hindi naman siya magbabago eh. Hindi din ako magbabago. Stuck na kami rito. Hindi ko na kaya, sobra na akong pudpod. Give up na ako sa project na ito. Ayoko na. Next project na lang ang gagawin ko. So in this scenario, this person felt like she just wanted to give up and she just didn't have the energy even to further engage in problem solving. So helplessness thinking trap, wala kang magawa, ubus ka na, lumalayo ka sa ibang tao, sumusuko ka na. Pakiramdam mo ay wala ka ng lakas na mag-isip ng mga solusyon. Wala nang pag-asa kaya't umiiwas ka na lang, susuko ka na lang, imbis na magsulong at harapin ang sitwasyon ng may pag-asa or optimism. So helplessness is pessimism. It's the opposite of optimism. So at this point in time, I'd like you to reflect after sharing with you all these thinking traps, now these 5 thinking traps that we fall into. Which thinking trap do you find yourself falling into? So the 5 thinking traps are mind reading, me trap, them trap, catastrophizing, and helplessness. there are many different thinking traps, no? And we can see that medyo tied, no? Slightly tied si me trap and mind reading. Pero marami pala sa atin, we fall into me trap, no? Because that's the one that's leading in the poll. And next is mind reading. And after that is helplessness, catastrophizing, and them trap. So I'm happy to see that not a lot of us are falling into them trap now, because that's not a very healthy trap then. Actually, all these traps are not healthy, but I think it's one of the worst traps din, itong them trap. Kasi when we fall into the them trap, we tend not to take self-responsibility for our actions. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. Na? Now, I'd like to propose to you, knowing that we have these thinking traps, what is one solution? What can we do to counter these thinking traps? I'd like to present to you what we call real-time resilience. No? So practicing mental resilience in the face of these thinking traps. So I'd like you to think of one counterproductive thought that you might have in a given situation. And for each counterproductive thought, use one of the strategies listed to generate a real-time resilience response. So the sentence starters can help you to formulate the response. They are evidence, that's not true because hindi yan totoo dahil, and then kailangan magbigay ka ng vivid and clear evidence against that thought, that negative or counterproductive thought that you have. And then the next resilience response is what we call reframing, no? Or trying to look at the situation or that thought in a different perspective. So a more helpful way to look at this is, or mas makakatulong kung isipin ko na, and then planning, no? Having a plan B. So if X happens, I will Y. Kung mangyari ang X, gagawin ko ang Y. So let me give you an example. No? Let me share with you my own experience of trying to practice this real-time resilience. Pre-pandemic in 2019, my organization, CLC, we hosted an alumni homecoming. So it was a 3-day event in 3 different venues. And at that time, there were around 100 participants. So I was feeling very nervous about it, to be honest. Nangisip ko, nako, baka hindi maging successful yung event, baka hindi maging successful tong reunion. And then, when I used evidence, that's not true because you know that you were able to successfully host a national convention of CLC Philippines with also the same number of participants, 100 participants, and you were able to host that event successfully. So that's an example of evidence now. The more vivid and clear evidence that you provide, the more you are able to counteract the negative thought. And then reframing. A more helpful way to look at it is if something goes, a more helpful way to look at it is we were able to host this national convention before, and there were only around 10 of us in the core group. Right now, there are 30 of us. There are more people organizing this event. So we will be able to host this reunion successfully. So that's an example of reframing. And then plan. Now, if X happens, I will Y. So nangyari nga talaga sa reunion na to na na-delay yung pag-deliver ng mga snacks namin ng umaga. So ang ginawa naming if X happens, which is that delay in the snack time, we will have an alternative activity. So what happened was we just moved our schedule and we made the snack time later. So I hope that helped you to understand how to practice these real-time resilience responses in response or to counteract our negative thoughts. So that's the beauty of this skill called real-time resilience, that by learning how to use evidence, that's not true because by learning how to reframe, a better way of seeing this is by learning how to plan, if X happens, I will Y. Kapag nahulog ka na no, sa thinking trap, makakabangon ka muli sa pamamagitan ng real-time resilience. No? You're able to handle situations more effectively, more productively, you're able to relax, to focus on the task, and to enhance your general confidence. You're building your inner resilience. So we've already discussed now how we need to take care of our body, our feelings, our emotions, our mind, our mental health, and to practice mental resilience, we need to take care of our relationships too. No? So we need to have healthy, nurturing, supportive relationships with friends, with family, with clubs, with school organizations, and the networks or circles that we belong to. So, just to share with you, these are pictures of me with my family and my CLC community. And that picture was the last event of our reunion back in 2019. Now, we had community building in a beach resort here. We also need to take care of ourselves in terms of our work. Now, so in our academic work, we need to have a manageable workload. We need support from our peers, our teachers, our professors. We need to take breaks from work. Now, we need to have meaningful and satisfying tasks. We need to engage in academic development, now, or student development. And lastly, we need to take care of our spirit. This is something also very important. Na? So, because spiritual self-care, spirituality brings meaning to our lives. Na? It doesn't matter what religious beliefs you practice. Any religious belief that you practice that is helpful for your spiritual growth can be very helpful for you in caring for yourself. No? So, in terms of the religious practices, maybe prayer or silencing or reflection or reading the Bible or reading scriptures, and then spending time in nature and spending time in the environment. That's also very helpful. And helping or volunteering for causes. No, so these are some pictures of the outreach activities we had pre-pandemic for my organization CLC. But after the pandemic, we still managed to do it, but with the help of partner volunteers. So we had a feeding apostolate last year, and we have community pantry mission this year, and that is still an ongoing mission. And then pre-pandemic, this is how we would do our prayer meetings and our masses and our gatherings, spiritual gatherings. But after the pandemic, we also had to shift now to an online format. So we still meet twice a month for prayer sessions, but via Zoom. And then these are just some pictures I'd like to share with you of meditation walks that I do on a weekly basis when we were under GCQ. But a few months ago here in Zamboanga, we had ECQ, MECQ. So hindi ako masyado nakalabas. Pero now we're back to GCQ. I'm able to do meditation walking again. So I think the majority of us, no, for majority of us, spending time with family and friends is how we practice self-care. And then followed by getting enough sleep and listening to music, followed by praying and meditation, and then watching shows on TV and videos, eating healthy food, and exercising. Okay, so thank you so much for sharing that, for sharing your responses. And it's good to know that all of us, in some way or another, we are able to practice different forms of self-care, now to take care of our mental health, to take care of ourselves holistically. So this is a sample self-care plan. Now, if you can see, we have to look at the different dimensions, no? Physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, relationships, workplace, and then we'll try to see what is the overall balance. And then we try to reflect, no? Like earlier I shared with you the challenges to self-care, what might get in the way in our self-care practice? And then what negative strategies do you need to avoid? And then if you implement your plan, how might you feel? So I'd like to invite you to consider making a self-care plan because you owe yourself 1 hour a day of self-maintenance. It can include reading, writing, yoga, exercise, dancing, meditation, painting, or whatever, but you owe it to yourself. 1 hour, 1/24th of your day, that is less than 5%. Now you have to make it count. No? It matters, it really does, make it count. So macro self-care are the different general areas which I shared earlier already, those 6 dimensions. But micro self-care are bite-sized self-care strategies we weave throughout the working day to revive, energize, and refresh, to ground us, to center us, to be present, attuned, to have body-mind awareness. So here are some micro strategies you can do while you're working or studying. No? To take a mindful coffee break. No? So how do you take a mindful coffee break? We do this to relax and to rejuvenate ourselves. We use all our 5 senses. So take your coffee, no? Take your mug, your cup, hold it in your hands. And as you hold it in your hands, try to be mindful of how it feels in your hand. No? Is it hot? Is it cold? And then as you look at your coffee, you try to smell the aroma. You engage your sense of smell. Now, what does your coffee smell like? And then as you drink it, what does it taste like? Is it bitter? Is it sweet? You look at it also, is it creamy? Meron bang cream? Is it black coffee? And then as you drink it, as you swallow it, you try to be mindful of the taste of your coffee, of the feeling of swallowing your coffee. So when you engage all these five senses, a simple coffee break, a short 5 to 10 minute coffee break, can already be something that's relaxing and rejuvenating. So this is what you call a mindful coffee break. And then another strategy that we can do in, to take a break from studying, from do or working, is what we call swinging shirt sleeves. Na? So we do this to energize, to shift our awareness away from our internal experience. So we can stand up, we swing our body, we let our arms fly loose. So if you can see the picture there, you can swing your arms forward and backward, or you can swing it from side to side like that. And this will already be a way of stretching, of moving our body and taking a small break. Now, this is something very important also, especially in this time of pandemic when there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of struggles. I'd like to invite everyone to practice gratitude, no? To have a gratitude practice. We need to counter negativity bias. Now, remembering all the good and love that we have received increases our positivity. So research shows that there's a significant connection between well-being and the practice of gratitude. It helps us to enhance our immune system, to improve our well-being and success, to manage our stress, and it lowers our risk for mental health issues. So list 3 things you did well today, or 3 things that you are thankful for today. So later on, tonight, before you go to bed, I'd like to invite you to think of 3 things that you are thankful for. And then if you make this into your regular practice, you will see that you are able to enhance your feeling of positivity and to be able to manage your stress better. So while studying, here are some other micro strategies we can practice. Na? Kapag nalulula ka na, when you're feeling overwhelmed, sabihan mo ang kaibigan mo o pamilya mo. Okay? So inform other people when you are feeling overwhelmed. Humingi ka ng tulong kapag kailangan mo ng tulong. Huwag ka mahiya o matakot. When you need help, you ask for help. Alamin ang iyong emosyonal na pagtugon sa sitwasyon. So as shared earlier in emotional resilience, how we build emotional resilience, we need to be aware of what emotions we are using when we respond to a situation. And then gawain para maka-rejuvenate. No? So here are some other things we can do to rejuvenate. So uminom ng tubig at kumain ng merienda. No? So we need to drink, to hydrate and to eat our snacks. We need to take a stretching break because we're all of us working from home, or even if you're working in an office, we are seated in front of at our desks, no, in front of our computers for a long time. It's important for us to take stretching breaks. And then we need to do deep breathing, no? So we have to practice deep breathing to relax ourselves. And then we can do mini massages, no? Sa ulo natin, sa noo, sa leeg, sa kamay. So we can massage this part, no, of our hand. So self-care needs to be proactive and preventative and not reactive. Maging maagap upang maiwasan ang pagkaroon ng sakit sa katawan, isipan at emosyon. Hindi lamang inaantay na may problema ka na sa mga areas na to bago ka kikilos. No? So it's important for us to be proactive. Okay? And it's important to focus on well-being. No? So kailangan nakafocus tayo sa ating kalusugan at sa ating mabuting kalagayan. And we need to practice this at the macro and micro level. So we need to look at those 6 dimensions of self-care, and we need to practice it in the small levels also. So I'd like to also share with you that one way of practicing self-care is in the area of mindfulness. Alam natin maraming stressors ngayon, maraming challenges. So mindfulness is one way of dealing with the stress. It's a good, healthy way of coping with all the stresses we have and all the challenges we are facing now. So mindfulness can be described as the practice of focused awareness, paying attention in the present moment, and doing it intentionally and with non-judgment. Mindfulness meditation practices refer to the deliberate acts of regulating attention through the observation of thoughts, emotions, and body states. Mindfulness teaches us to go beyond thoughts of right or wrong and create a safe space for you to observe yourself without judgment. So there are many different mindfulness activities now. So mindful non-judgmental awareness of our breath, inhaling and exhaling, our body, how our body is feeling, our feelings, our emotions, and our thoughts. We can do this in sitting meditation practice or throughout different points in our day. And then mindful walking meditation. So I showed you in the pictures earlier that how I practice mindful walking meditation. So as I take a walk, I try to be aware of my surroundings and to look at different things in nature that I observe. Mindful eating, no? This is very important. I think marami sa atin, nakakaligtaan natin to, di ba? Parang kumuha tayo ng chichirya. Next thing we know, ubus na yung buong bag, no? So it's important for us to do mindful eating, to be aware of what we put in our bodies, to be aware of what we're eating and the volume that we're eating. And then mindful body scan in a sitting or lying down position. So when we're sitting, whether we're sitting down or whether we're lying down in bed, we can do this. We can scan our bodies and try to be aware of how our body is feeling. And baka may parts na masakit, baka masakit likod natin, masakit ulo natin, baka masakit tiyan natin, or masakit yung mga muscles or joints. So when we do this mindful body scan, it helps us to connect our mind and our body, and it helps us to be aware of how our bodies are feeling. And then mindful breathing. So you try to visualize that your stomach or your belly is a balloon. So when you inhale, your belly expands. And when you exhale, your belly contracts. So parang lumalaki yung balloon, lumiliit yung balloon as you inhale and exhale. And then as Sir Michael shared earlier, it's important to listen to others, especially in this pandemic. Kailangan natin kinukumusta ang isa't isa. No? Pero maliban sa pakikinig, we need to do it with non-judgment. No? So pag nakikinig tayo sa kaibigan natin, sa friends as kaibigan, friends, family, importante na hindi natin sila ginajudge. No? Makikinig lang tayo. So here are some other activities you might want to consider for mindfulness. Now, relaxing, smiling, cloud gazing, walking barefoot, spending time in nature, having an open mind, forgiveness. For those who have pets, you might want to take your pet or dog out for a walk. Cooking can be mindful. Taking a bath, enjoying a nice shower, can be mindful. For those of us who discovered our inner plantito or plantita during this pandemic, planting things, gardening can be mindful. Talking with friends can be mindful. Guided meditation can be mindful. So there are so many different activities that we can do mindfully. So what are some of the benefits of mindfulness? So it causes changes in our brain. It increases gray matter density in areas of our brain that's associated with learning, self-awareness, and empathy, with emotional intelligence, compassion, and emotional regulation, and memory. So research shows that people who engage in mindfulness-based stress reduction find their anxiety drops by half, now by 50%, and that they are living more full lives. So the more we practice meditation and mindfulness, the more it makes us mindful in our daily activities. When you're mindful of how your actions affect others, it positively changes your relationship with yourself, with nature, and with the planet. Another aspect now, or another concept that's very linked with mindfulness, is what we call self-compassion. So this is by Dr. Kristen Neff, and you can learn more about it in their website now, selfcompassion.org. So self-compassion is about self-kindness now. We want to be more loving towards ourselves, and we avoid being too self-critical. And then we have to be aware that we have a common humanity, lalo na with this pandemic, di ba? Parang nakikita natin, di lang naman Pilipinas ang apektado, buong mundo talaga. So everyone suffers. You are not perfect. No one is, but you are not alone. And then mindfulness. So mindfulness is noticing our struggles and difficulty without judgment, feeling it instead of pushing it away, responding instead of reacting. So, right now, I would like to invite you to go with me, to journey with me through a mindfulness meditation. So, I'm going to take you on a journey, a mindful journey about having this capacity to experience what it's like to practice self compassion and self love. This meditation is really going to be grounded through the breath. The breath is a sacred pathway to God. It does not matter what faith you practice, or even whether you are a believer or not. The breath, just having the opportunity to wake up in the morning and to be able to breathe, is reassurance that we are given another chance to live, to be, and to become. So, with every inhalation and exhalation, I would love to invite all of you to practice the breath as a form of prayer, so that with every inhalation, you are bringing in into your space anything and everything, not just your heart's desires, but maybe even certain aspects of your life that you may not be aware of. Any need for mental, emotional, or physical healing. And with every exhalation as we breathe out, we are letting go of anything and everything that no longer serve our highest purpose. So please gently close your eyes. With your eyes closed, settle in comfortably and allow your body to experience a wave of relaxation. Allow yourselves to be aware of your breath, the inflow and the outflow of breath as it enters into your body. And as you exhale, thoughts may come and go. Just allow the thoughts to come and go. With every breath, we are becoming aware that we are given another opportunity just to be present and to experience life. And with every breath, we are connecting to the parts of ourselves that are wounded, that need attention, that need to be loved, that need to be held. And as you continue to breathe, offer this form of love, which is the breath, into every part of your body. Open yourself to whatever experience is happening in your body at this moment. Becoming aware of the parts of your body and breathing into them to express gratitude and compassion for taking care of you. Let relaxation begin, starting with your feet, your legs, then your thighs. Breathing into your stomach or the gut, especially the internal organs. And just love every part of yourself, your physicality. Breathing into your chest, where the heart is. Just breathing in, just surrendering to this experience. While bringing awareness to these parts of your body, relax your arms, your neck, and your head. Your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, and your brain. Just spend some time breathing in and out and mindfully saying to the body, how do you feel today? What can I do for you? Is there a part of your body that is wanting to say something? Is there a part that is requiring your attention now more than some other parts? Just express your love. You can gently caress that part of your body, experience compassion and soothing comfort, and again, express your gratitude by saying, thank you for taking care of me. Thank you for always being there to hold me, to love me, to help me fulfill my dreams, to help me do whatever I need to do to survive, to take care of my family, to take care of other people. Thank you. Thank you, my beloved body, for everything. And then, with your hand on your heart, what does your heart want you to know at this moment? Take a couple of deep breaths. And silently repeat these words to yourself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in compassion. May I be held in compassion. May I accept myself just as I am. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be healthy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. May I know the natural joy of being alive. Once again, breathe into the experience. Breathe this experience into your heart and to every part of your body. Take a few deep breaths in and out, deeply, gently. Take a couple of more deep breaths in, inhaling and exhaling, and letting go, and just surrendering to what it is, to the unknown, with full trust and faith. Gently, slowly, when you're ready, I invite you to come back, slowly move your body, hands, and fingers, and you may open your eyes. So, thank you everyone for being present and for just allowing me to take you on this journey of mindfulness. Thank you. I wonder how that practice was for you. I hope that that mindfulness practice was very helpful, that meditation. So you can do that at different points in your day. If it's better for you to do it at the end of the day before you sleep, you can do that, and that might help you to sleep better. So that is an example of how mindfulness meditation can be practiced. Now. So, just to sum up, I'd like to share with you some very practical tips on self-care. So, the first one is to have a good morning routine, no? Magandang morning routine. Kasi pag maganda yung morning routine natin, maganda gising natin, it sets the tone for the rest of the day. And then, iplano mo na ang iyong araw, no? Gawan mo na ng panahon ang self-care. So you have to plan your day ahead and to try to include a self-care practice in the schedule of the day so that you'll be able to really practice self-care, no? And then try to say no without guilt, no? Huwag matakot na magsabing hindi, no? Minsan kasi parang ang gusto natin ma-please lahat ng tao pero kulang yung ability natin to gauge, no? Hanggang saan lang ba talaga yung limits natin. So if there is something that we really cannot take on anymore, our workload is so full, we really have to learn how to say no to someone asking us a favor, to do this and that, no? Minsan kailangan matuto tayo mag-say no na hindi mag-guilty kasi kung di talaga kaya, ba't pa natin pipilitin, di ba? And then gampanan ang iyong mga mahahalagang responsibilidad, no? So it's important for us to fulfill our very important responsibilities. Unplug and disconnect. Bawasan ang oras sa social media. I know this is hard for us right now because of the quarantine. We all tend to use social media as our way to, connect with friends and with, people who are not part of our not in our neighborhood, na ganyan, no? So minsan kasi pag sobrang we're drowning in social media, it adds to our stress. So I think it's more healthy if we can take some time during the day to unplug and to disconnect so that we can recharge our energies as well. Di ba minsan ang bilis ma-affect sa mga nababasa natin sa social media, lalo na pag about the pandemic, parang minsan lalong dumadagdag sa kaba natin, di ba? So it's important for us to take time to disconnect from social media. Tapos iplano ng mabuti ang iyong diet at kumain ng masustansyang pagkain. uminom ng sapat na tubig. No? I think we all need to be mindful of this, no? To be well hydrated. And then, mag-ehersisyo at gumalaw ng katawan. No? So, movement and exercise is very important. Bawal ang pagpupuyat, no? Kailangan sapat ang oras ng pagtulog. So, iwasan na, no? Yung mga marathon video watching, or for those who are into gaming, playing Mobile Legends or ano pang games out there, try to avoid, no, na magpuyat. We really need enough sleep. That's important for self-care. Humingi ng tulong kapag kailangan. Again, no, huwag tayo mahiya. No? Minsan kung hirap na tayo at kailangan natin ng tulong, humingi tayo ng tulong sa pamilya natin, sa kaibigan natin. And then maglaan ng panahon na makipag-usap sa pamilya at kaibigan. We have to spend time now to talk with our family and our friends. Kumustahin ang iyong sarili, magsulat sa diary or journal. So I don't know how many of you do this now, if you keep a journal or a diary, but it would be helpful if you do, and you can write down what you're thinking, what your thoughts are, what your feelings are, what you experienced that day. And it's very helpful for self-care. And then magpasalamat at magbigay sa iba. No? So again, the gratitude practice that I shared earlier, no? That is so important. It's important for us to be thankful, no? For whatever blessings or gifts or good things we have in our lives. No? And then to also be able to share those blessings with other people, no? Through service, through help that we give others. And then manahimik, no? To practice that pause that we talked about earlier, that pause in daily life. No? Kailangan manahimik tayo, so we engage in meditation. So I led you through a guided meditation earlier, and you can access some mindfulness meditations on YouTube. There are a lot there that you can use for your mindfulness meditation practice. And then for those of you who engage in prayer, prayer can be also helpful. And then for those of you who have time to go for a retreat, or even just to take some simple time for self-reflection, that's also very important. So putting it into practice, I'd like to invite you, if you have a pen and paper beside you right now, to take a moment, jot down one thing you will commit to doing to improve your self-care. Now, it might even be just committing to getting more sleep, practicing 5 minutes of daily quiet time. Write it down, try it out in the next week, and monitor what happens. It usually takes 21 days to a month for a habit to be fully established. So let me go through the reflection questions that we went through throughout our session today. So the first question was, our first question was, what has been your chief stressor so far? How do you practice self-care? And what would you commit to do to take care of yourself? So self-care looks different to each and every one of us at different times in our lives. At the end of the day, when you climb into bed and your soul is weary, you are the only one who has to feel content with what you gave to the day and what you gave to yourself. It was your best and it was enough. Your well-being is as important as every other person's well-being. Looking after yourself is not selfish. By caring for yourself, you are better able to care for others. You honor yourself, others, and God by authentically caring for yourself. So let me share with you, just to close, this song by Ben and Ben. Sorry, let me go back to that. Okay, so these are the references that I used for this talk, and I can share this with your faculty so they can disseminate it to you, because these are all helpful for us now in this time to remind us to practice self-care and mindfulness.